The horrific monsters of the Bible that no one can escape from. Our world is filled with tales of heroes and villains, but none captivate the imagination quite like the monstrous creatures found within the pages of ancient texts. Today we embark on a journey into the realm of biblical monsters, uncovering the enigmatic beings that have both terrified and fascinated generations across time. From the depths of the sea to the dark corners of the earth, the Bible weaves a tapestry of extraordinary beings that challenge our understanding of the natural and the supernatural. These creatures, shrouded in mystery and symbolism, hold a unique place in the annals of our very existence, leaving us to ponder their origins, meanings, and their timeless relevance. In today's episode, we will dive deep into the narratives of the Bible, delving into the stories of these legendary creatures that have stood the test of time. From the awe-inspiring Leviathan with its scaly skin and fiery breath, to the gargantuan behemoth, whose sheer size dwarfs the mightiest of men, we'll be uncovering several beings that have both terrified and fascinated generations across time. Behemoth. In the realm of biblical monsters, one entity stands out as a true colossus: Behemoth. This beast, mentioned primarily in the book of Job, an ancient poetic text found in the Bible, has captivated readers with its immense size and mysterious nature. Yet, despite the allure of such a terrible beast, Behemoth doesn't actually have a significant role in the Bible. In fact, some might say that Behemoth is nothing more but a bit of a flex by the biblical God to show Job, who was going through a bit of doubt in regard to his God's powers and purpose, just how powerful he really was. Essentially, what the biblical God tries to teach Job is that there is much about the world that he doesn't know, and that no man can really understand God's ways, nor life itself, because there is much more to the world that we have not yet perceived. Behemoth essentially becomes an example that God provides Job, allowing him to behold the monster to illustrate his point. Job is told of this beast, "Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you and which feeds on grass like an ox. What strength it has in its loins, what power in the muscles of its belly. Its tail sways like a cedar, the sinews of its thighs are close-knit, its bones are tubes of bronze, its limbs like rods of iron. It ranks first among the works of God, yet its maker can approach it with his sword. The hills bring it their produce, and all the wild animals play nearby. Under the lotus plants it lies, hidden among the reeds in the marsh. The lotuses conceal it in their shadow. The poplars by the stream surround it. A raging river does not alarm it. It is secure, though the Jordan should surge against its mouth. Can anyone capture it by the eyes, or trap it and pierce its nose?" Job 40, verses 15 to 24. From this vivid description of the creature, we can determine that Behemoth is a beast of unparalleled strength and grandeur, a monster of considerable size with powerful limbs that cannot be captured nor even threatened by man. Ironically, despite its imposing presence, the beast appears to be an herbivore and maintains something of a gentle diet as it feeds on grass like an ox. This is indeed quite the contrast from the powerful muscles of its belly and the bones made of tubes of bronze. And there is an implication here that even though Behemoth is infinitely more powerful than mankind, it does practice some form of docility, choosing to hide amongst the reeds in the marsh and conceal itself in their shadow. There have been some efforts to place Behemoth into an earthlier category and to strip it off its magical nature so that we might understand it better, which kind of defeats the point of what the biblical God was trying to teach Job, that some things just can't be understood. Some view the creature as a literal beast that once existed, potentially an extinct species. Of this, some have presented the idea that Behemoth was a long, surviving dinosaur, possibly a variation of a brontosaurus with its immense size and herbivore diet. But scientifically speaking, these are quickly dismissed considering the difference in time periods. A less creative suggestion has also been put forward, which aims to place Behemoth as something as bland as a giant hippopotamus, an elephant, or some kind of mutated hybrid of more than one large animal. Others adopt a more metaphorical approach and consider Behemoth as a symbolic representation of cosmic or societal forces, or perhaps the primeval chaos and the force of nature. With this idea, the creature comes to represent the untamable aspects of the world, those that, despite our knowledge, we can never truly control. As the passage ends in Job's account, we cannot capture it by the eyes, and we cannot trap it or pierce its nose. Additionally, Behemoth's juxtaposition with another biblical creature also found in the book of Job comes to represent the opposing forces of land and sea. Of course, I'm talking about Leviathan. With Behemoth being a land creature and Leviathan being a sea creature, one might say that the two are contrasting elements, which some suggest can be representative of order and chaos, or perhaps even good and evil. Behemoth, the colossal beast of the Bible, stands as a testament to the captivating and multi-layered nature of biblical mythology. Its presence in the book of Job sparks contemplation about the mysteries of the natural world, the interplay between chaos and order, and humanity's place in the grand tapestry of creation. Whether viewed as a literal creature or a metaphorical embodiment of cosmic forces, Behemoth's symbolic resonance endures across cultures and throughout time, inviting us to explore the boundaries of our imagination and our understanding of the world as we know it. The first beast. The first beast is primarily described in the book of Revelation, specifically in chapter 13, the first beast. In this chapter, the Apostle John witnesses a vision of a beast rising out of the sea, possessing 10 horns and 7 heads. The beast resembles a leopard with feet like a bear and a mouth like a lion. The complexity and combination of such animalistic features are not only mind-baffling for us to comprehend, but they also suggest a diverse and formidable nature of the creature, one that neither John the Apostle nor us, the reader, is ready to deal with. John tells us of this beast in Revelations. "And I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard but had feet like those of a bear and a mouth like that of a lion." Revelation 13, 1, 2. Many scholars believe that the first beast represents political power or oppressive regimes that have emerged throughout history. The 7 heads are seen as symbolic of different ruling empires, such as Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. The 10 horns represent subordinate authorities or kingdoms that arose from these empires. This interpretation highlights the cyclical nature of oppressive systems that have plagued humanity. Another interpretation suggests that the first beast represents the allure of idolatry and false worship. The characteristics borrowed from the lion, bear, and leopard emphasize its ability to seduce and deceive people into following false gods and engaging in sinful practices. This interpretation warns against succumbing to worldly temptations and emphasizes the importance of remaining steadfast in one's faith. This can be reinforced by the continued description of the first beast by John, as he tells us, "The beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies, and to exercise its authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to blaspheme God, and to slander his name and his dwelling place and those who live in heaven. It was given power to wage war against God's holy people and to conquer them. And it was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book of life, the Lamb who was slain from the creation of the world." Revelation 13, 5, 8. With this description, John also suggests something of a prophecy, or a warning, that all inhabitants on the earth who has not been written in the Lamb's book of life, or those who have been chosen to be saved, will fall for the beast's words and end up worshiping him as they make their final departure away from God. This is perhaps, therefore, one of the scariest creatures in the Bible for believers to comprehend. For he will not attack with violence or intimidation, but instead seduce man to its way of thinking with its words, and damn them from eternal glory. Some interpretations view the first beast as a representation of the Antichrist, or a personification of evil itself. The beast's possession of blasphemous names and its claim to authority and worship align with the notion of a malevolent force that opposes God's divine plan. This interpretation emphasizes the eternal struggle between good and evil, and serves as a reminder to believers to resist the temptations of evil. Additionally, some theologians have come to conclude that the first beast was symbolic of the first-century Roman Emperor Nero, and the harsh rule he implemented during that time. As an oppressive political leader, it's easy to see why contemporaries at the time would associate the beast to Nero, who was said to actually be responsible for John's banishment as well as many brutal murders. Whether viewed as representing oppressive political powers, idolatrous tendencies, or the embodiment of evil, the symbolism of the first beast offers valuable lessons and calls for vigilance, steadfastness, and a commitment to the pursuit of righteousness in the face of temptation and adversity. The second beast is mainly described in the book of Revelation, specifically in chapter 13, alongside the first beast. It emerges from the earth and possesses horns like a lamb, but speaks like a dragon. This seemingly contradictory image highlights the deceptive nature and hidden intentions of the second beast. John tells us in Revelation 13, "Then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. It exercised all the authority of the first beast on its behalf, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. And it performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to the earth in full view of the people. Because of the signs it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast, it deceived the inhabitants of the earth." Revelation 13:11-14. The second beast is often seen as an accomplice to the first beast, working in tandem to deceive and exert control over humanity. As we can see, it performs great signs and wonders, even raining fire down from the sky in an effort to convince everyone that this is the coming of God, and not something far more insidious. With these tactics, it further deceives people into following the first beast and embracing its ideology. We see John speak of this as he tells us, "The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so that the image could speak and cause all who refuse to worship the image to be killed." Revelation 13:15. This interpretation underscores the power of deception of the second beast and calls for discernment, reminding believers to remain steadfast in their faith and not be swayed by false miracles or false leaders. This second beast is considered amongst believers to be the false prophet, he who comes in the times before the return of Jesus to dissuade followers and convince them to follow the first beast instead. Though he takes the appearance here of a lamb with 2 horns, his role as a false prophet is maintained in his actions. John tells us that this beast deceives the inhabitants of earth and is so convincing in persuading the earth to do as he says, that he is able to establish a system whereby any who revoke him are killed. This same system that the second beast enforces enables the mark of the beast, that is, 666, to be stamped upon every person in existence, whether they be rich, poor, common, or famous. The mark is not just a stamp of allegiance to the beasts, however, those who were brought about by Satan, but as John tells us, it also makes it so that those who are not stamped cannot buy or trade, thus are not eligible for food, shelter, or wealth. So indeed it can be said that the second beast's characteristics and symbolism highlight themes of political authority, influence, and economic control. It serves as a reminder to remain discerning and steadfast in the face of deceptive ideologies and systems that can lead individuals astray. Ultimately, understanding the significance of the second beast encourages believers to uphold moral and spiritual truths amidst the challenges of the world. The locusts of Abaddon, simply known as the locusts, also appear in the book of Revelation and contribute to the prophetic narrative that everything is coming to an end. With John at the helm again, he tells of all the destructive things that will transpire during the end times, including the 7 trumpets of the angels, each of which signify a different degree of torture that befall man during those times. It is the 5th trumpet that concerns the locusts, those who are described as fearsome creatures resembling horses that are prepared for battle. They have crowns on their heads, suggesting some holy authority, and faces that resemble human faces, suggesting some kind of intelligence and strategic thinking. They, as specified by John in Revelation, are given a power similar to scorpions, whereby they torture humanity and inflict great pain upon those who have not been chosen by God. Specifically, we are told, "The fifth angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. When he opened the abyss, smoke rose from it like the smoke from a gigantic furnace. The sun and sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss. And out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any plant or tree, but only those people who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. They were not allowed to kill them, but only to torture them for 5 months. And the agony they suffered was like that of the sting of a scorpion when it strikes." Revelation 9, 1, 5. Some interpret the locusts as being a plague, a consequence delivered unto humanity for their continued sin. Those who are righteous are seemingly unaffected by the plague in question. But those who do not have the seal of God upon their foreheads are violently pursued for a total of 5 months. There is an argument here that this is one of the very last opportunities that man will have to change his ways, for the locusts are not there to kill them, but to make them see that they have wronged and must atone for it. After these 5 months, if they have atoned, there is an implication that those who were attacked may have the chance to right their wrongs and find their way onto the path of righteousness. Those who do not will be in for much worse than just the bites of scorpion-styled locusts. Of their appearance, John tells us, "The locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. On their heads they wore something like crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human faces. Their hair was like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. They had tails with stingers, like scorpions, and in their tails they had power to torment people for 5 months." Revelation 9, 7, 10. The locusts' resemblance to horses prepared for battle suggests their association with warriors, at least considering the time period where men on horseback could be easily imagined as riding into the battlefield equipped with sword and shield. The description seeks to show readers that these creatures have not come to talk, but instead to fight. They are violent in nature. They cannot be reasoned with, and like the villagers of some poor town, we can do nothing but scream and cower as the terrible riders descend upon us. Meanwhile, their human-like faces serve as a mirror to our own plight. They have our faces because they are a manifestation of our own wicked ways. In a sense, believers might say that we have done this to ourselves, and so when God sends these creatures to attack us, He sends them with our faces, forcing us to acknowledge our own horrors that we might have committed. John concludes of these locusts, "They had as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon and in Greek is Apollyon, that is, destroyer." Revelation 9:11. In some traditions, Abaddon is a fallen angel, or an angel of death. So it is fitting that he is the one in charge of the deadly locusts, and speaks volumes that it is him who unleashes them, likely under the command of God, upon humanity. The beasts of Daniel, as we delve into the book of Daniel, we are transported to a time when the Israelites found themselves in captivity in Babylon. It is within this foreign land that Daniel, a young and devout Israelite, rises to prominence in the court of King Nebuchadnezzar. The book offers a unique blend of historical accounts and prophetic visions, leaving us spellbound by the vivid imagery and gripping storyline. In Daniel's dream, he sees a succession of 4 beasts emerging from the tumultuous sea. These creatures, each distinct in its form and characteristics, symbolize powerful kingdoms and rulers that would shape the course of history. The lion with eagle's wings represents the Babylonian Empire, with its majestic strength and swift conquests. The bear with 3 ribs in its mouth symbolizes the Medo-Persian Empire, voracious in its appetite for expansion and domination. The leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads represents the Greco-Macedonian Empire, marked by its unparalleled speed and the fragmented rule of Alexander the Great's successors. Finally, the terrifying beast with 10 horns and iron teeth, and an additional horn speaking pompous words, foretells the Roman Empire and the rise of its oppressive and blasphemous leader. Whilst all 4 of the beasts appear to be daunting in their own right, it is the 4th beast in Daniel's vision that gives him the most trouble. This beast, we are told, was both terrifying and frightening. It had large iron teeth that crushed and devoured its victims, and it trampled underfoot whatever was left of its victims. Furthermore, Daniel tells us that the 4th beast was different from all the other beasts, suggesting that it was this one that stuck out the most, and that it had 10 terrible horns all over its body. Of these horns, he tells us, "While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a human being and a mouth that spoke boastfully." This horn essentially continues to run its mouth and appears to do the talking for the 4th beast. It boasts, Daniel tells us, and basically declares itself as the highest and the ultimate being in the universe. Of course, this is only until the Ancient of Days, presumably Jesus, shows up a few lines later and kills the beast and throws it into a blazing fire. Daniel tells us, "I kept looking until the beast was slain and its body destroyed and thrown into the blazing fire." The other beasts had been stripped of their authority, but were allowed to live for a period of time. Daniel 7:11. 12. In this, we also learn that the other beasts described in this chapter are also exposed for their deceptions, before being stripped of their power and rendered worthless. Yet, in spite of their terrifying appearances, the first 3 beasts are not destroyed immediately, but allowed to live for a period of time to soak in their defeat. The 4th beast, though, is not offered the same luxury or mercy, but is indeed obliterated, perhaps a testament to how powerful it really is, considering that the Ancient of Days doesn't risk keeping it alive. Well, either that, or he found total incineration was the only way to get the little horn on its head to shut up. In any case, we do know that the 4th beast was definitely the most formidable of the 4, as an angel later confirms to Daniel that this beast, in the form of a king, will trample and devour the earth. It explains that the little horn with the eyes and the mouth, which is metaphor for a king, will come to subdue 3 other kings, these being the 3 other beasts. His wickedness is great, that the other 3 beasts have no choice but to concede to his might and acknowledge the 4th entity as the Most High, as a god, if you will. This 4th beast will then oppress the holy people of the biblical God. Here, it is believed, that the truest and most righteous believers will be undermined, ridiculed, and persecuted for their beliefs, and that many will be encouraged to worship the 4th beast instead. For not only will there be evidence of his existence, but to decline him is to face banishment, torture, or even death. All this will transpire over a 3-year period, and this Daniel associates with the Antichrist, who will rule in the years before the return of Christ, who will turn people away from God and spoil their opportunity to ascend to heaven. Considering the time of Daniel's writing, it's possible that the author was referring to the Roman Empire, considering that God's chosen people were persecuted by Roman dominance. The 4th beast in this aspect is the Roman Empire, a destructive, political, and military machine that conquered lands far and wide. The horn that emerges from the 4th beast's head, meanwhile, is the Roman emperor, the head of the unstoppable juggernaut, specifically Nero, according to some theologians, who, if you remember correctly, also associated Nero with the first beast in John of Patmos's Revelations 13 for his violent conquests and frequent misconduct. There are also some efforts to place the Roman emperor as the Antichrist, considering that it is the Antichrist who rises from the 4th beast in the form of the tiny horn. Another idea is that Daniel's vision is not referring to the Roman Empire of the past, but instead the potential revival of a Roman Empire in the future, or an empire on the scale of what Rome once was, that maintains global authority and political dominance. Of this theoretical empire, the leader of the empire, this tyrant, if you will, becomes the small horn with the many eyes that boasts. With this in mind, Daniel's warning here is actually for us, or a generation that is yet to come, that one day, an evil global figurehead with undeniable power will rise up to govern humanity, and that many will fall in line with his regime, either believing in his deceptions or choosing to follow him of their own volition. However, as per Daniel's words, the Ancient of Days will return to overthrow the fourth beast, this new tyrant, and only those who remained true to God and do not acquiesce to the temptations of evil will be saved and rewarded. The dragon, one of, if not, the most prolific monsters in the Bible. The dragon has more than earned its place amongst the most horrific monsters in the Holy Book. With its 7 heads, 10 horns, and scaly red body, the dragon requires very little description to convey its fearsome appearance, let alone its nature. Its tail is capable of sweeping the stars out of the sky. It goes head-to-head against the angels of God, and even in its defeat, it spews water from its mouth, like a gushing river. It's no wonder the dragon is so feared amongst readers, and it's no wonder why the author of Revelation, where the dragon appears, is described with such horrifying detail, because it is later identified with Lucifer the fallen angel, and then as Satan himself. In chapter 12 of Revelation, we are told of a narrative where an unidentified woman, who most identify with the Virgin Mary, as being pregnant and is readying to give birth. Just then, though, another sign appeared in the heavens. An enormous red dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon each descends upon her. Revelation tells us, its tail swept 1/3 of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, so that it might devour her child the moment he was born. Revelation 12:4. Indeed, the child Mary is giving birth to is, of course, Jesus Christ. So it makes sense why Lucifer, as the dragon, would wish to destroy him so as to prevent him growing up and proving to be his greatest adversary. At this point in time, Lucifer, who was once a beautiful angel himself and a favorite of God, had already been cast out of heaven for his jealousy of mankind and his arrogance toward his Maker. So he was already feeling pretty vengeful and wanted to strike back at God for having banished him. What better way to do this than by snuffing out the Son of God? If Lucifer could consume Jesus before he had a chance to become the Messiah, there would be no hope in the world, no force of goodness to follow, and surely no Savior for humanity. Lucifer, as the dragon, would win the war between good and evil before it even really got underway, which shows us not only how dastardly the dragon was, that it went to such extremes to kill a baby, but that it would stop at nothing to ensure its own survivability and deny God, his nemesis, from deploying his Son upon the earth. Upon seeing this all transpire, God snatched up the baby and brought him up to heaven, whilst the Virgin Mary fled into the wilderness, where she was taken care of for 1260 days. During this time, there was a great civil war in heaven where many angels decided that Lucifer had a point, and so they sided with him and began a great rebellion against God. This saw a war break out in heaven, with the archangel Michael and his angels fighting against Lucifer the dragon and his angels. Revelation tells us of the immense battle, but the dragon was not strong enough, and he and his angels lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. Revelation 12:8-9. As we can see, the dragon is overcome by the forces of Archangel Michael, and after being hurled down, takes the identity of Satan, the personification of evil, and the main figurehead of one who leads all humanity astray. Now, when the dragon realized he had lost the war, and he and his angels had been hurled down to the earth, he tried to redeem his loss by killing the Virgin, Mary. We are told in Revelation that he pursued her, but that she was given 2 great wings of an eagle, with which she used to fly further into the wilderness and out of the dragon's clutches. So, perhaps out of frustration, the dragon spewed water like a river from its mouth, hoping to overtake the Virgin Mary and sweep her away with the torrent. But even here, the dragon was foiled, because the earth itself opened its mouth to receive the water and swallowed the river that had been spewed from the dragon's mouth. Enraged that all of his efforts were for nothing, the dragon turned his attention upon the rest of humanity, specifically the ones who kept God's commands and held fast to Jesus' testimony. These humans who are the most righteous and the most God-fearing are the ones that the dragon, or Satan, detest the most. And according to belief, it is these groups of people that he continues to wage war against. The dragon in Revelation chapter 12 serves as a potent symbol of not only the devil Satan, but also evil, chaos, and spiritual opposition. Its presence within the biblical narrative highlights the ongoing divine warfare and the cosmic battle between good and evil. Moreover, the dragon's ultimate defeat signifies the triumph of Christ and the ultimate fulfillment of God's redemptive plan. By understanding the symbolism and significance of the dragon, readers gain insight into the profound theological themes present in the book of Revelation and the broader message of hope and victory it conveys. The Nephilim, known for their extraordinary size and strength, the Nephilim were the giants of the Bible, beings capable of immense devastation. Despite these creatures receiving only brief mentions in the Genesis tale, the Nephilim have gone on to invoke a sense, awe, intrigue, and also outright fear in both the characters who witness them in the Bible and in modern believers today. We first see mention of the Nephilim in Genesis 6:4, where we are told, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." Genesis 6:4. Here, we are told of the rather controversial union between these sons of God and the mortal women. The precise nature and identity of these sons of God is open to interpretation, as the Bible never really determines whether these are men or in fact angels. Some believe that this forbidden union links to the apocryphal Jewish text of the Book of Enoch, a story that tells us that fallen angels known as Watchers came down to the earth to have relations with the mortal women. Through these women were the Nephilim sired, but as it was an unholy union between angel and man that God did not permit, the children who were born turned out to be monstrous, bloodthirsty giants that nearly destroyed the world as it was known. In the Book of Enoch, these giants are drowned in the flood sent by God, but the Bible makes no mention of this actually happening. Instead, it is left to the reader's assumption as to the fate of Nephilim, though most assume that they did perish in the flood, as the Bible tells us in the next chapter of Genesis, that every living creature that wasn't aboard Noah's Ark drowned. What's interesting about this account of the Nephilim in Genesis 6:4 is that despite their nefarious nature, they are described as mighty men and heroes of old, which may be an indication of how people came to see them at that time, beings with extraordinary physical capabilities that possess such incredible strength that one could not help but be fascinated by them in some way. The giant's exceptional size and strength is further emphasized in Numbers 13:33, where the Nephilim show up again after the flood. Moses, who had led his men into Canaan, sends his scouts out into the land on a reconnaissance mission. What they see there, however, is enough to terrorize some of the spies down to their very core. They report to Moses, "We can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are." And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land. They had explored. They said, "The land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." Not only does this report make it seem like the Nephilim had somehow survived the flood, further adding to their prowess, but it also shows us how shook Moses' men were in the face of these colossal monsters. The spies describe themselves as grasshoppers in comparison, which further delineates the stark difference between man and Nephilim, and how little we can do against them. Whilst the Bible does not provide an exhaustive description of the Nephilim, the snippets of information we do have do even more to contribute to their mysterious legend. The fact that these larger-than-life beings that possessed such incredible strength were wiped out in the flood, only to reappear several chapters later, has baffled readers and scholars alike for generations. And the fact that the Nephilim do not reappear in the biblical narrative only lends to the mystery. Their reputation as heroes of renown, as well as their association to fallen angels, adds even more layers of complexity to their identity. But the biggest curiosity regarding these beasts may simply be their abrupt exit, where after Numbers 13:33, they are simply not mentioned again. It truly does beg the question, what happened to the Nephilim? Leviathan. Its snorting throws out flashes of light. Its eyes are like the rays of dawn. Flames stream from its mouth. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke pours from its nostrils as from a Leviathan boiling pot over burning reeds. Its breath sets coals ablaze and flames dart from its mouth. These are just a few words that describe the biblical monster Leviathan found in chapter 41 of Job. In total, there are 34 verses dedicated to describing the beast's power and appearance, which come in the form of God's voice to Job. What we see here is a massive sea creature that is associated with a great serpent or even a dragon, one who is so imposing and tremendous that no human can even touch the beast, let alone kill it. Leviathan, as God tells Job, cannot be fished out of the water like a common fish. The monster cannot be bargained with. It cannot be captured, and most importantly, it cannot be tamed, not by mankind at least. It is the beast that exists above all other beasts, and it cannot be hunted, for there are not enough harpoons in the world to cover its hide. If you were to touch it, you would experience suffering immediately. Essentially, the beast is invincible, and this is made even clearer by God's declarations that any hope of subduing it is false. Job 41:9, and no one is fierce enough to rouse it. Job 41:10. Despite being its creator, even God seems impressed by Leviathan's physical attributes, as he almost brags to Job of its limbs. Who can strip off its outer coat? Who can penetrate its double coat of armor? Who dares open the doors of its mouth, ringed about with fearsome teeth? Job 41:13, 14. Its indestructibility is further emphasized by God, as he tells Job Leviathan is impervious to attack. Its back is made up of a row of shields that are so tightly sealed together that no air can pass between them. These shields are likely its scales, those which God tells us cling together and cannot be parted. This depiction symbolizes the dominance of Leviathan and how futile it would be for any man to go up against it, for it is evidently impossible to break through its sturdy flesh. Put simply, Leviathan cannot be harmed. God continues that when the beast snorts, it shoots out flashes of lightning. Its eyes are like the sun at dawn, flames shoot from its mouth, smoke billows from its nostrils, strength resides in its neck, and dismay goes before it. By comparing its eyes to the sun, it already possesses a power that we as humans have no control over. Already, we are stumped by the beast, for its eyes are enough to overpower us. The flames that come forth from its mouth, meanwhile, are potent enough to set coals alight. And evidently, Leviathan has no qualms about using this ability against mankind, should they attempt to pester it. Smoke billows from its nostrils, possibly capable of choking mankind, or concealing its own form from us. Lastly, there is power in its neck, suggesting that whilst our own necks are vulnerable to blades or breaking, Leviathan's neck is quite the opposite. But God isn't done explaining Leviathan there, no. He goes on to say that the folds of its flesh are tightly joined, its chest is hard as rock. When it rises up, the mighty are terrified. They retreat before its thrashing. Here we see that the folds of its flesh are much like its scales, tightly joined and impossible to pull apart. Its chest is sturdy and likely impenetrable, unlike ours, which can be pierced by sword or arrow. Then we are told that even the mighty, even the strongest, most heroic of men, cannot stand up to Leviathan, and even they will retreat before its mighty form should they ever behold it. God continues that the sword has no effect against Leviathan, nor does the spear, or the dart, or the javelin. To Leviathan, iron is like straw and bronze like rotten wood. No weapon upon earth can harm Leviathan, and it will even laugh at the efforts made by man, for it knows it cannot be harmed by such small and tiny pieces of metal. Lastly, we are told, nothing on earth is its equal, a creature without fear. Job 41, 33. Aside from its devastating physical attributes, Leviathan does hold a symbolic significance in the Bible as the representation of chaos, evil, or a force of darkness, as later seen in subsequent biblical chapters. But what is the purpose of Leviathan? Well, much like behemoth, arguably the earth counterpart to Leviathan's water, Leviathan is created so that God can illustrate his power over all creation to Job, and to show Job that there is so much more that he does not understand. Remember, Job's family by this point would have been killed, and he would have been terribly ill, leading him to lose faith and even reproach God for allowing such things to happen. Essentially, Job believes he understands God's actions as vindicative, but by showing Job behemoth and Leviathan, God reveals that Job understands very little and exposes the chasm-like gap between mankind's understanding and the divine. Additionally, the existence of Leviathan was to illustrate his sovereignty over all creation and to show God's transcendence over even the most formidable and fearsome creatures. Leviathan is also mentioned in other biblical passages, including Isaiah 27:1, where we are told that God will destroy Leviathan, and Psalm 74:14, where Leviathan is crushed to feed the creatures of the desert. In both examples, the destruction of Leviathan is for the greater good and can be understood as a symbol of God's ultimate victory over evil and the restoration of peace and order. Overall, the description of Leviathan in the Bible presents a mythical and powerful beast. Its characteristics serve to illustrate the might of God and the insignificance of human strength when compared to the divine. Leviathan's symbolism also contributes to theological themes of order against chaos, the triumph of good over evil, and the ultimate sovereignty of God over all creation. As always, guys, if you've enjoyed today's episode, then don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more content just like this.